Are you there? Nope, up there. This tree is so big, we can't even get it in the frame.
It is a live oak here at Aransas National Wildlife Refuge, and it's what, 500 years old?
Yeah, they said it was here before the first European settlers came, and it's probably one of the first things they saw.
So that's pretty cool, especially because it's right near the bay. So it's pretty close to saltwater and it managed to stay. But as you're driving along the main road, you'll see it pull out a small parking area you can go into, and it's a tenth of a mile to walk in here.
Not even.
Totally worth getting out and coming back. Yeah, totally worth coming back here to see this grand old tree back here. It's pretty cool.
Along Texas's Gulf Coast, you'll find the Aransas National Wildlife Refuge, where we decided to spend the afternoon.
We came here looking for all kinds of birds and found all kinds of birds, including the endangered whooping crane, which have migrated here for the winter.
It was a special treat to see the whooping cranes, and we did see a couple of them. There are only about 800 in the world, so it's really unique that there are some here because this is along this Gulf Coast area is where they do winter. They come all the way south from Canada. They'll be here from October to probably March, April-ish, and then they'll head home. And they usually are in pairs, and we saw, I think, 2 different pairs while we were here. And man, those birds are tall.
Well, they're taller than you.
Yes, and we saw them from a distance because they were out in the salt marsh area. But they say they're about 5 feet tall, and well, we know that I am not 5 feet tall. So if I were to see one in person, it would be I'd basically be eye to eye with these giant birds.
There are a lot of big birds here. There's sandhill cranes. There's all kinds of egrets and different kinds of cranes. There's ducks. There's, I mean, just you name it. There's all kinds of birds
all
here.
sorts of wildlife. Waterfowl, water
and
birds,
other wildlife.
other things.
You can see deer and armadillo and alligators. We saw that here. There's another pull off for Jones Lake. Super short paved walk, takes you out to a little observation deck. It's worth coming back here. We've seen lots of duck type birds. And Jesse just found
a wild pig.
Oh. Oh.
I didn't want you to miss him.
You never know what you're going to see here, including, I can't get him on the GoPro. I got a picture, so I'll put the picture on the screen, but what did you discover across the bank?
A very, very chonky alligator. Very.
He's got some winter weight on him.
Oh, can he eat the pig? Where'd the pig go?
Oh, maybe that's why the alligator's so wide is
He's been eating the pigs.
snacking on the pigs. Anyway, that's what makes this kind of place fun. Is you bring your binoculars, you hang out in an observation deck for a while, and you'll see things when you first walk up, and if you stay long enough, things come running out of the bushes. It is a national wildlife refuge. We discovered it's, 115,000 acres, and you only get to see a very tiny percentage of it.
Very, very small, because the rest of it, it's wild for a region. I mean, it's a refuge for a reason.
Yeah.
So they let you see just a brief little bit of it and get a taste, but mostly it's left to the animals, and for good reason.
Yeah. It was created back in 1937 by Franklin D. Roosevelt. And of course, interesting to you is it was then built by the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps. And we're actually standing in what is now a picnic area, but I think this would have been where their camp was.
Yeah, they said this along this area here where the fishing pier was their camp. And the only thing left is the cement bottom of the flagpole, which is over there along the water.
Which is pretty typical. Most CCC camps, when they were done, they struck them.
Because they didn't want to, it was leave no trace, essentially. So they didn't want to have their infrastructure left behind when they were trying to create something natural. As always, begin any tour here at the Visitor Center, where you'll pick up your map, you'll need to pay your entrance fee, you can get your Junior Ranger book, and visit the gift shop and use the restrooms.
It's a relatively new visitor center. I think they said they just opened that one in 2022.
2022.
And the problem is the displays aren't ready yet because those are still being worked on. I think the one ranger we talked to said like every couple of months they get an update that said the displays will be in any day now.
Yes. And
it's been a couple of years.
So she said there will be a big grand opening when it ever happens, but it's already been 2 years. So take that as you will. But at least right now they're handing out free, this is January of 2025. And they're handing out free little guidebooks of like the different birds and animals you'll see, because they got a grant to hand these out. So it's a really nice laminated like trifold booklet. Anyways, I don't know how long they'll have those, but that was a nice
Yeah, and even if they don't have those, they do have, maps of the park, and always you can stop in there. They'll give you tips and tricks on, things you can do and things you might see along the different hiking trails that you can take, that kind of thing. So it's always a good idea to stop there. We just walked to the end of Heron Flats Trail here at Aransas National Wildlife Refuge. It used to be a loop, and now it's not.
It is no longer a loop, thanks to a couple hurricanes and some floods and other storms that apparently took out a bridge and part of the path. So now it is an out and back. It is about 1.5 miles total, as we've now discovered, because I marked it on my watch and we're at 3/4 of a mile. So I think when it used to be a loop and now it's still 1.5 miles no matter what. I think they figured it out.
Because we're on an observation deck that is now at the end of the trail, but I think this used to be the middle of the trail. Middle of the loop, and now it's the end. So you just got to turn around and come back, back to the parking lot from here. But it's interesting little trail through the wetlands that are here. You've got different standing water on one side, you've got the bay on the other. So we saw an alligator.
Yeah, cute, good size alligator.
Good size gator. You got to watch for those here, and all kinds of water birds, obviously.
Yeah, we've seen whooping cranes, sandhill cranes, snowy egrets, blue herons, the roseate spoonbills, all sorts of little water birds. There's a lot out here.
Yeah, it's a nice little trail. Easy. I mean, it's relatively flat.
It's very flat, other than the little observation, which is the ramp actually to get up here. So.
And when we stopped at the visitor center, this is one of the ones they suggested we come out on, and we'd recommend it too. One thing to keep in mind about the Heron Flats Trail, and really anywhere that you're at in this wildlife refuge, is even when you see the birds, they're going to be quite a ways out from you in the whatever wetland area they're in at that moment. So you want to make sure you bring a good pair of binoculars so you can really take advantage of seeing the birds. If you watch our channel, Jesse carries binoculars everywhere, but even I'm carrying binoculars today because this is the place to have them. At the end of the main road into the wildlife refuge is the observation deck. Haven't been up there yet. Looks like a good climb to get up there, but it should be a good view as well. One thing to note, it's a good sized parking lot, and there's bathrooms here. So nice spot to have a little picnic before you head on up to the observation tower. The observation tower is quite a ways up here, but they've done a good job with the switchbacks, and it's all ramp, and so none of the ramps are very steep, so it's not really too bad of a climb. Like pretty much anybody could do it.
At the end of the main road here, there are 2 observation towers, a boardwalk, and the big tree trail. So you can basically park in one spot and do all of those things, or bits and pieces of all of those things, which is kind of what we did. We did the tallest observation tower, which is like 40 feet up in the air. And then we did the boardwalk and half of the big tree trail, and then cut back down the road because we didn't really want to go back through the same way. So it was not as much to see on that trail. It was mostly walking through all the big and the live oak and the trees, and so you're kind of within the confines. You're not going to see any of the birds or the water on that trail.
We should point out there are 2 observation towers here. There's the big 40-foot tower, and there's also a 20-foot tower. So if you don't want to take the ramps and climb all the way up 40 feet, you could do 20 feet, or you could do both, because I think depending on where the birds are, you're going to get different angles.
Yeah, they're different.
And they move around because they're live birds. And then if you follow the boardwalk out from the observation tower parking lot, that takes you across the mud flats, which the refuge says to watch for footprints in the mud.
Oh, and there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of those. And then
animal footprints, not people footprints.
Yes, animal footprints only. And then there's a fishing dock out there.
Yep, and there was a couple people out fishing, and they were catching something, I don't know, big fish.
Big fish that some of the herons were eating too, yeah. So it's popular. But then also that boardwalk then leads you to Big Tree Trail, and that is a loop. It's 3/4 of a mile if you go all the way around. And then at some point about halfway, you end up at the parking area for Big Tree. So you could park there and just walk that loop if you wanted, and then come in here. Like you said, we did the shortcut. We did half that loop and then came down the main road. It's a short walk back to the main parking lot. So either way, it was interesting. One pro tip, because we tried to offer those, it was really windy at the top of the 40-foot tower.
Well, that's because it's really, really windy in Texas today.
It is. And I was going to say, I don't know if it's always that windy up there, but be prepared that you don't lose a hat and anything else that's loose, like small children, because it was really windy.
It was really windy, but it was actually really cool because at that point, you're at the same level as the turkey vultures, and they had caught one of the drafts, and so they were like floating around our heads like as we were up there, so that was really cool.
Yeah, and if you have binoculars, which you should if you come here, because of the way they glide, it's really easy to kind of go with them. It's almost like a ride. You're watching a video of them, so that's pretty cool too.
I'm out here on the rail trail. I think it's called that because of some birds, not because of what we think of as a rail trail, which is the old railroad beds. I think there's some bird that has the name rail or something to that effect. I guess I could look at the book. But we're on the way out of the park, and we realized that this was the last one we hadn't done. And Ari stayed in the car. I just ran out here real quick. And it's getting to be almost sunset time, and the sandhill cranes are just flying over like crazy. I'll see if I can get some of those on video. They're super loud, and they're really cool as they fly over because their wingspans are massive. But this is a really nice trail. I may not make it out alive, though, because I am getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. And I don't know, it must be because we're in the marsh. It's buggy. I wasn't expecting mosquitoes in Texas. So I'm not going to go too much further because I do not have bug spray, and I am a magnet, and I'm just getting swarmed. But this is a really pretty trail. It's definitely marshy. There are gators. I've seen a couple of them. So watch yourself, watch your kids, watch your dogs, watch for gators, watch for birds. But this is a really pretty trail.
From the visitor center, there is just one main road in and out of this National Wildlife Refuge, and it is a two-way road all the way to the observation tower parking lot, and then from there you can take a one-way road that's about, I think they said it's 9 miles to go all the way around and out through the marsh. So you see just a very tiny piece of the marsh. You never know, we saw javelinas out there.
And some whooping cranes.
And we saw some whooping cranes, and you never know what you're going to see out there. Just, it depends on, I'm sure, the time of year and who's hanging out here.
But you don't have to go that one way. You could just take the main road all the way to the observation tower and then back and hit all the different like turn off points along the way, because there are some different places you can pull off. There's the picnic area, the fishing bridge, the old oak tree, the Heron loop or whatever. There's all the main pull offs are along the main road, not the one way.
Right. And I would say, you know, whether you're doing the one-way road or you're in the main road and you have the hiking trails, the observation decks, one recommendation I would give is pack your patience, plan to spend some time here because, you know, the animals aren't on a schedule. The birds aren't on a schedule. So you need to take time to stop and just stare at things for a while.
The whole point of going to a wildlife refuge is to watch the wildlife. And so you're going to want to just, like you said, stop and sit a while, because we watched a great blue heron fly in with this giant fish in his mouth, land, bang that fish around on the ground for a while, and eventually gulp it down in one bite after apparently he thought it was dead enough to eat. And that process took probably a good 5-10 minutes or so. So you're going to want to, you know, have your binoculars ready and your camera and your patience, you said, just to sit and watch all of the things. Because then we started focusing in more on one individual bird, and we'd watch them for a while, and another one would catch a fish and eat it and fly off and do things. And, you know, we were sitting and watching an alligator and some ducks, and all of a sudden here come these wild boars like running down to the water. And so we watched them for a while, and had we just like walked out in the boardwalk, said, oh, look, there's a gator, and left, we would have missed all of the other things that happened there.
Including the second gator that popped up.
Yeah.
So we were watching the pigs, and we looked back at the first alligator, and I'm like, why is there a rock there now? And then realized that's not a rock. That was another gator's head. So.
Yeah. So, you know, we got here because we weren't rushing this morning, and it was about a 45-minute drive for us to get here this morning. We got here about, I don't know, 11 to the visitor center, a little bit after maybe. Didn't really get going on the trail road until almost noon. And, you know, it's, I don't know, almost 5 o'clock now. And we probably could have stayed here longer. Just depends on how much we wanted to sit and watch the wildlife.
I was going to say, the park is open sunrise to sunset?
Yes.
Yes. The visitor center, gift store, everything else is open 9 to 4. But the park is open sunrise to sunset.
Oh, which that's a good thing to keep in mind, because if you want to do your junior ranger badge, or you want to stop back at the gift store and, you know, buy any souvenirs, either do it first when you get here, and then you can spend all day and not worry about it, or make sure you have to get back there by 4 o'clock to do your purchases. Then you could come back in, I suppose. Now, I mean, dusk is 5:30, you know, day, whatever, sunset, whatever they call it.
In January.
It's early. So you're not going to have that much more time here, but other times of the year, you know, that would change. But
And this is a place I would say if you're in the area or you come through the area more than once, that you could visit this place numerous times. And depending on the weather, depending on the time of year, you're going to see different things and experience different things. I know we met a couple at one of the lake where we saw a lot of the ducks and the gators and the pigs and everything. They were surprised because the last time they were here 2 years ago, they said the lake was much larger.
yeah, apparently now it wasn't. I'm not even sure they would call it a lake. It was more just like a little watering hole. So they were surprised. And so I'd like to come back here even maybe in a couple months and see how much that's changed.
They have two signs next to each other. One says alligators are wild and do not feed them. And the other one says the gate closes and locks 30 minutes after sunset.
Ooh, so the alligators have got something going on here.
They should probably have another sign that says, and the alligators come out at night, and then people would leave before the gate closes. Because you're going to spend the day here, I would pack food, snacks, a lunch, maybe a little dinner, depending on when you get here. There's a really nice picnic area in here, what used to be the CCC camp area. There's plenty of places to just kind of sit and observe wildlife and have a snack or have a picnic if you wanted.
Yeah, we brought peanut butter sandwiches and some crackers and had lunch out by the observation tower. So, wherever you find a spot, one thing I was going to point out, they do say multiple times, do not feed the wildlife. So bring your own snacks, but do not feed the wildlife. And apparently you are allowed to bring dogs because it says keep them on a leash. And we saw a lot of people with dogs here today. I mean, I would keep in mind that there are alligators and we did see them not too far from some of the trails. So keep a good handle on your dogs and your small children for that reason. But it is dog friendly, which you don't see at a lot of the national parks. So I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and I think I was going to mention too, a lot of people think about the national parks, the national monuments and memorials. Don't forget the National Wildlife Refuges. We actually ended up picking up their passport book that shows you all the wildlife refuges across the country. And there's way more than I thought there were.
Way more.
So,
including way more in our own state of Michigan. And I knew of 2 of them, and I think I saw like 10 in the book. I'm like, where are these places? So we got more things to put on our list of things to do now.
Yeah, and there's a huge list of them here in Texas too. So we're going to try and check out some more of those. But if you get a chance, look for the National Wildlife Refuges. If you get a chance, check out the Aransas National Wildlife Refuge. In the meantime, keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there.
A quick note about that one-way driving tour that you can take from the observation parking lot. There's a sign as you enter it that says no vehicles longer than 25 feet, wider than 7 feet, or taller than 8 feet. Now, the road is a little bit narrow at times, and there are some pretty good curves. So I understand the width and the length, but we didn't see anything that would have restricted anybody from a 9-foot vehicle, 8-foot vehicle, whatever. So, because we even checked the height of the van just to be sure, and we are under 8 feet, but we weren't sure. And so I wanted to mention that. The sign, I'm not sure why that 8-foot height restriction is there. Maybe there was something at one time that it was a problem. I didn't see anything there this time. So don't be deterred by that sign if you think you might be just a little bit too tall. Width and length, I'd keep that in mind, but height, I wouldn't worry about it.